You know, I get pumped and excited to talk about the sport of sailing on this show. We actually, one of the very first guests we ever had on this show after the Rio Olympics was the gold medalist in the laser class, Mr. Tom Burton. And 4 years later, Australia retained that title, and for the third consecutive Olympics, if you don't mind, won the laser class. And joining us on the show is a guy who won that, also a 4-time medalist at the World Championships, and the first ever Australian to win the laser class at the Olympic Games, not called Tom, which I think is a pretty good achievement. It's a pleasure to welcome to Off the Podium, Matt Wearn. Matt, welcome to the show today. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm sure that's a big achievement to be the first Australian to win the laser not called Tom. I mean, that's a hard achievement to get, but I mean, I'm sure it's probably the proudest of all those achievements I just read out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it started to seem like you needed to be named Tom to win a gold medal at the Games for Australia. But I'm happy to break that voodoo for everyone else, really.
Yes, exactly. And then continue the trend of having, say, 2012 Tom, 2016 Tom, 2020 Matt, 2024 Matt. So, but be you that wins it again. So kind of this weird, I like patterns. What can I say? I think that would just fit perfectly in a couple of years' time. It's no pressure, okay?
Yeah, well, it sounds like a perfect pattern to me. I would not complain.
Keep it flowing there. But I love sort of reading and learning a little bit about your background into sailing, because you grew up in a sailing family, but you very nearly could have been a completely different athlete. You could have been preparing in a week or so time to be playing the AFL finals, because you were quite a pretty good footy player growing up. So, I mean, kind of what was it that you eventually took on sailing rather than maybe playing off in an AFL grand final?
Yeah, I think, it was obviously a lot of different things. The team aspect of football and stuff like that is obviously so completely different to what I do now with the laser sailing, that it's just me out in the water. And at that time, it was appealing just to have the results and the focus be purely on myself and sort of no one else to blame. And even if you played an extremely good game of footy, doesn't necessarily sort of secure you the win. Whereas, if you have a really good day out in the water in the laser, then, more than likely you're going to have a good day. That was a pretty big part of it for myself. And I think as well, like as I was sort of, growing into my body in some sense, that the running and those sorts of things, although I was still sort of adequately good enough for it, that if I had kept training for it, that I was probably more better suited for a sit-down sport, let's say, with sailing, something that you didn't need to be running and using your knees and your ankles as much.
I like that term, sit-down sport. Can I classify podcasting as a sit-down sport? So, I mean, I think I might steal that.
Yeah, go for it.
That works perfectly. So, I mean, growing up in Perth, I've got to ask a question. Were you a West Coast man, a Freo man, or kind of did you just buck the trend and go for somebody else?
Yeah, sort of went off on a bit of a tangent. I followed Port Adelaide and still do follow Port Adelaide pretty closely. As far as the WA rivalry goes, I was more of a Fremantle boy than a West Coast guy.
Smart.
One of those ones that go for anyone that versus West Coast. But it seems to be that I was always a bit different and went for Port Adelaide.
I've got to ask, like, we're here to talk about the Olympics, but I mean, how does somebody growing up in Perth go for Port Adelaide? I mean, me growing up in Tasmania, we've got no choice. We've got to go for somebody, and usually you pick a Melbourne team, but for somebody from Perth to choose an Adelaide team, that's a bit unusual.
Yeah, I think when we first started playing football, like sort of that Auskick sort of junior level, that we played in the Port Adelaide Jumpers. I think that was a big part of it. And then as well, sort of around that 2004 era, when I started to become a bit more involved in sport and could understand it a bit more, that, Port Adelaide won their grand final and were sort of, doing well as a team. And I think as any young kid, you just jump on the bandwagon a little bit. So, that's probably the main reason.
And you soak that success up, right? Because you think, like, this is going to last forever. And then they keep breaking your heart all the time. I'm a Carlton supporter, so I'm still sulking after yesterday. So it's...
right, yeah.
Yeah, been a rough 24 hours. Nearly had to cancel this, Matt. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to face the world, basically. When it comes to sort of your family's background with sailing, had they had experience in laser? I mean, sort of what drew you into the laser category?
Yeah, I guess my parents' background in sailing is more in the bigger boats. Yeah, obviously at a club level, doing sort of the 20 footers, 30 footer sort of boats in Perth, sort of bigger crews and stuff. And I guess that's how I initially got into sailing, sort of going out with them on their boat and things like that. But yeah, my older brother and sister both were sort of involved in sailing, and yeah, just hanging around yacht clubs. And I guess I begged my parents enough to do a learn to sail course, and obviously started in a smaller boat, the Optimist, but that eventually sort of led to the Laser. And I guess the biggest part of it was just a cost thing. The Laser's a reasonably cheap boat, and reasonably accessible as well. There's plenty of them around, and you don't really need the best boat as well to be competitive. They're all quite similar. So, I guess that was the initial reason why I got into the Laser. But it sort of just all worked out in the sense of, body size and things like that. And I sort of just fitted it, the bill perfectly, really.
Because there's a lot of, I love it when we've had sailors on the show and kind of finding out that progression in the sport, because I can imagine at certain points you pursue, say, Olympic sailing versus the bigger boats, an America's Cup, a Sydney to Hobart, that sort of scene. Was that something that steered you towards maybe an Olympic appearance because that's what you wanted to do, or kind of, and when does a sailor have to kind of make that decision, which way you want to follow?
Yeah, it's I guess you can in some sense dabble in most sides of the sport, but you certainly have to. I feel like you need to be committed to the games route, at least, speaking from my own experience of at quite a youth age. So the decision has to be made quite early. I guess you can always defer into the bigger boat and the America's Cup stuff and the professional side of sailing at any time, really. But if you want to specifically go for the games, certainly sort of history says, and the success of the team says that you need to be making that decision at quite a young age, and sort of before you even left school, you really need to be sort of set on that path. So it's quite an early call, and I mean, I sort of see the Olympics as a bit of a pathway into the America's Cup and into the more professional side of sailing, and see it as a bit of a resume builder in some sense, trying to get those results. And it's sort of that natural progression. But I do also see the professional side of sailing as something you can do to a later age in your life. It's not such a big toll on your body and things like that. So I always thought that the Olympics was the feasible pathway, and that's where the motivation was for such a long time.
Are there rules kind of in sailing? Like if you are a professional sailor, you can't compete in the Olympics? Like, is that a thing?
The Olympics, not so much. Well, I guess myself's technically deemed as a professional sailor anyway, purely due to the amount of days that we do sailing. But there's rules around professional sailors competing in the bigger boat regattas, to make it fairer so it's not just sort of bankrolled by some rich millionaire that wants to have all the professionals on his boat and go and win everything. So it sort of hamstrings us a little bit in that sense about going and making some money, because you can only have 3 people on a boat that are professionals, and when you're sort of swinging in, you got to make sure that you're one of them, really.
Fascinating. So is that sort of similar to, say, like the Sydney to Hobart? Like, I'm not sure if you've done the Sydney to Hobart or not, Matt, but like, can you just all of a sudden get a phone call and go, "G'day, Matt, we want you on our boat," or are there again certain rules around that?
Yeah, the Sydney to Hobart's a bit different. You can, I guess, most of the people that do the Sydney to Hobart will be professional, purely from a safety and risk point of view. I think you need to have a certain amount of qualifications to do it. It's something that I sort of aspire to do. It's on the bucket list, the sailing bucket list, to do the Hobart. Hopefully can tick that off this year as well. But you certainly can just get a call up and ask to be on the boat, and if they think that you're going to be helpful to their campaign.
And then come visit Hobart, because that's a lot of the reason why some people come is obviously on Boxing Day they get in a couple of boats. When you were growing up, sort of just in terms of the Olympics, was it something that every 4 years you paid attention to? Were there sort of moments growing up? I mean, I think you were about 5 when Sydney was on, so I'm not sure if, again, a lot of people of a certain age in Australia obviously got spurred on a lot by the Sydney Olympics. Sort of, what was your sort of Olympic background growing up?
Yeah, I guess Sydney is probably my earliest memory of the games, but to be honest, I can't obviously remember too much of it, only being sort of 4 or 5 years old at that point. But I definitely remember sort of going and picking up brother and sister from school and coming home and sitting down and watching the Olympics and sort of having mum explain what it was at the time. Definitely remember that. But I guess it wasn't until sort of 2008 really that I guess my first big involvement in the Olympics, in the sense of having someone that I knew that was sailing at my local club that went to the Olympics and was successful, winning a gold medal. And I guess that was probably where the big drive and the big motivator came from, and sort of being like, oh, I really want to do that. And I guess it came at that time of my life where my sailing was starting to progress as well, in the sense of going to sort of junior world championships and things like that too. So could sort of start to see the steps being placed out in front of me, and could really start to picture a goal and an aspiration to go to the games.
Now, was that Elise or Tessa that were at your club?
Yeah. So both Elise and Tessa, obviously same boat. So,
which, I mean, I can imagine is something like that where you see it directly from a place that you're involved in, that is achievable, which, I mean, I can imagine really does spur you on. So when you have that, you kind of get that in your mind that this is achievable. Are you a target-driven sort of athlete? Do you then go, okay, I want to be in Rio, or I want to be in London, or, you know, like, do you sort of set yourself a pathway towards one of the next couple of Olympics?
Yeah, I guess in some sense the Olympics goal was so broad. It wasn't necessarily like, Rio or Tokyo or anything like that. It wasn't a date set on it at that point. I guess it was more, and it's probably by the help of having some good coaches and mentors around me at that point in time, that it really set the goals of getting into the state institute with Wace, and then getting onto a national team and going to a world championships for a youth class, and and then stepping up into the senior class in the laser, and then getting onto the squad. There's all these little steps that I guess hindsight, looking back onto it, was sort of in some sense set for me. And you kind of knew that was the process you needed to take to get to the Olympics. So although the games were the end goal, and obviously winning a gold medal was the dream, there was always something smaller that I was looking at in a shorter term, and sort of a more 12 to 24 month space. That was always the drive for me. It was always the thing motivating me to go out and train most days.
How is that progression sort of when you go through those junior through to the senior ranks? I mean, you obviously compete in a couple of junior championships, sort of, early 2010s, make your way up through those ranks. But is there a case of, if you're dominating the junior circuit as a 15 or 16-year-old, can you all of a sudden qualify for a senior championships? Or is there sort of an age limit when it comes to sailing, that you can't compete in, say, in a senior one until you're a certain age?
Yeah, so I guess senior events in general, there's no age limit. You could go and compete as a 12-year-old if you really wanted to. But the World Championship specifically, there is an age limit of 16 years old. There is that little, I guess, hurdle you got to jump across. But I guess the biggest thing is just like physiology, just size wise. You're just not big enough yet. I was a pretty big teenager, and I was still reasonably small to compete against the others. And I just got lucky enough that the World Championships were in Perth in 2011, and that was my first real taste of it, and kind of got a bit of an exemption. I was still 15 years old at the time, and could compete in the senior world. So that was my first experience of all of it, and I guess that really lit the fire of wanting to compete as a senior athlete. Just the sheer competitiveness of the class.
Because I believe in that period too, you sort of made the national team, sort of that, then you sort of didn't make the team, and then kind of did make the team. So it was kind of a bit of back and forth, which I can imagine is challenging, because you make the team, great feeling, but then you never think you're going to get cut, and then you do get cut, and then it's, I guess, finding that way to bounce back. So I can imagine that was a really interesting period.
Yeah, super tough time. Sort of, like, I guess it's one of those things that sort of you look back on it, and definitely teaches you a few things. And I probably qualified too early, if that makes sense. That I was probably not ready to be sort of thrown into that super high level, getting a top 10 at world sort of thing. Although ability was definitely probably there, the mental side of it and the physical side of it definitely wasn't. So the following year when, trying to re-qualify and things like that, and the results just weren't happening. The pressure just keeps building and building and building. And I guess you sort of don't expect the pressure that you'd feel from the team itself to try and re-qualify, and how much importance they put on it. So that was certainly hard to deal with, and something that I struggled with for sure after not being able to do that. But then, obviously some really good people on my side of things that sort of supporting me and stuff like that. And there was sort of that epiphany realization moment that like can't keep competing with that sort of pressure on yourself. So really looking at that side of things and going forward, and then obviously re-qualifying, it was sort of like, well, there's no looking back now, sort of thing. We've ticked the boxes and are ready to sort of keep rolling on.
Is there one key aspect in that period where you are sort of struggling to deal with that was the big driving factor that changed that? Was it the mental side of things, the physical side of things that really was the main driving force to have that epiphany that you were talking about?
Yeah, I think I sort of just coming out of the youth side of things, that I was so used to just being able to turn up and win almost, that I was sort of still in that mindset that, oh yeah, I'll just go sailing, go do the training and I'll be sweet. Didn't sort of understand at that point in time that the amount of training that needs to happen both mentally, physically, and everything else around it to support your on water sailing, and even just life in general, just having that balance. It couldn't just sail anymore. Had to do all these other things that, sort of one of those really hard meetings you have with your sort of support team and stuff like that, that they're sort of really frank with you, and you sort of go, oh yeah, something's got to change. And that was the mental side. And I guess that's when I sort of really knuckled down and started hitting the gym a bit more, the cross training, doing some more work with the psychologists and really building from there.
You mentioned that it's a sit-down sport, but I mean, it's obviously an incredibly physical sport, sailing, one that maybe doesn't get the credit as much as it probably deserves. But when it comes to, say, the laser class, when it's just you, I mean, what is that key part of your body that is it an upper body thing because you're pulling on ropes and things like that, steering, or is, it's a core system? Like what are you focusing when you go to a gym session?
It's sort of, it's one of those sports that you can't sort of focus on one area, I guess, not like cycling and things like that, where sort of leg dominated sports, where we're quite an overall body thing. So like our quads are obviously important, our leg strength, so then we can sort of be what we call hiking out the side of the boat, so we can hold ourselves out there. But then you need the strong core and the strong upper body to be able to do the stuff with the ropes and what we call sheeting and steering, and it's quite a big toll from that sense. So when we go to the gym, it's usually a big all-round based gym session. We might sort of focus on the lower body a little bit more than some other classes do, just because the physiology of the way we're hiking. But you got to be strong everywhere. You got to be fit in general. So we do a lot of cycling as well to help balance that out.
Is there a rivalry in a sailor's gym that you go in there and go like the laser people are over here, the 470s are over there, like because maybe you've got to do a bit of training, and is there a bit of like showmanship going on? Like, nah, the laser guys are tougher than you. Like, does that happen in sailing?
Yeah, most definitely. There's I guess we all test with the similar sort of movements and strength based stuff. So there's always like sort of and we're all quite different body types as well. Some people are quite need to be quite small and slight to keep their weight down, but they're also, so all that stuff sort of body weight, like power to weight ratios and things like that they work out. So we have a bit of a friendly competition between the classes that you gotta have the best power to weight ratio on the squat or something compared to someone else who would do the most reps with bench pull. There is a bit of friendly fire there for sure.
And does laser come out on top? Like, are you the toughest athletes of all the sailors?
Yeah, we normally we're certainly up there. But there used to be a big boys class called the Fin, which were like sort of 100 kilo, 110 kilo guys, and they were usually the kings of the gym. They were usually in there more often than not, and they'd usually get the chocolates when they came to winning that sort of stuff.
Which I always love it too. when it comes to, say, being at an Olympic Village and you're hitting the gym? Because I love hearing stories from athletes who are, say, going to a gym and they're trying to guess which sport like each of the other athletes are. And how do sailors rank with that? Like, if all of a sudden you're rocking up to the gym at the Olympic Village and there's a freaking weightlifter next to you, and like, I mean, like, it must be very fascinating to try and you're doing your workout while you're next to some pretty big athletes and maybe all the different body shapes basically of Olympic athletes.
Yeah, it's certainly different. Yeah, I think that we always get looked at a bit strangely because a lot of our exercises, I guess, are sort of the out of the box exercises that the strength and conditioning guys sort of find that might help us. So we're always standing on Swiss balls and pulling random cables and just doing really strange stuff. So you always get stared at and looked at in some sense of like, what's this weirdo doing? And they're like, oh yeah, they're a sailor sort of thing. So there's a bit of that, but yeah, I mean, when you're in the gym with some weightlifters or someone that's snatching or something that does it professionally, that you're just sort of in awe in some sense. You sort of just the amount of weight that a human body can move and throw above their head. You sort of sit there and sort of in awe a little bit. But it's always nice to have a bit of a mix up and see some of the other body types and the way that some of the other athletes train for sure.
It's like a guessing game, I can imagine all the time. Just like, oh, they're a gymnast and they're a boxer and like, a handball. Like, I don't know. Like, just it seems like it would be incredibly fun. Speaking of the Olympics, 2016, narrowly miss out on selection for Rio. Obviously, miss out to Mr. Tom Burton, who goes on to win gold. I read a quote from you that said that this turned out to be the best thing for you, basically. I mean, obviously, you go on to the next Olympics, win a gold medal. It worked out pretty all right for you in the end. But, I mean, I can't imagine that whole period wasn't difficult. I believe you sort of worked with Tom and he beats you to it, then he goes on to win a gold. I mean, that's a wave of emotions I can imagine that looking back on now was just a crazy time in your life.
Yeah. Again, it was sort of one of those sort of big turning points in my career. And I guess in some sense it was a strange feeling because I sort of rocketed quite quickly into that potential Rio spot. And I guess, in some sense put so much pressure on Tom and was always pushing Tom that for those sort of last couple of years leading into the games. And I guess the last 18 months I was beating Tom in more regattas than not. And you sort of start to get, your head starts to get filled with the idea that, or you almost get clouded that like, well, there's no reason why I shouldn't be going to Rio. And obviously still quite young, still quite new to the whole Olympic circuit sort of thing. That I guess I was sort of a bit naive in that sense of what actual work needs to be done to be successful at the Olympics. So even though I probably could have gone, I don't think I was quite ready to win a gold medal. And I guess that's where the side from Blackers, Michael Blackburn, our coach, really comes in, and from the selection panel where they definitely chose the right person in the end. Well, obviously never know what I could have achieved, but I think deep down I know that wouldn't have been a successful games for myself in that sense. But it certainly lit that fire. It certainly motivated me to make sure that just definitely didn't happen for Tokyo. That there was no chance in hell that I was missing out on going to the Olympics and having that opportunity. There was that drive from not qualifying. So I have a lot to thank for not going to Rio, but I also see it as potentially a missed opportunity to have another medal in my back pocket. For sure that could have happened.
Well, you say about lighting a fire and then medals. I mean, did pretty all right in between Rio and Tokyo at the World Champs. I mean, bronze in 2017, silver in 2018, silver in 2019, silver in 2020. So, I mean, you did pretty okay there in the lead up to Tokyo. But the thing I was fascinating, you qualified for Tokyo September 2019, which, of course, at the time, is less than a year out from the Olympics. We didn't know it was going to be nearly, 2 years out, which, having had a lot of winter athletes on recently and they're qualifying like 2 weeks before the Olympics, it's a bit different. But what was that feeling like when you qualified and then you got the nod after everything that you just overcame missing out on Rio? Was that just utter relief. And given that at that point it was, 9 months out from an Olympics, you can kind of relax a little bit and kind of, focus on the fact that you are officially going to the Olympics?
Yeah, it was certainly a strange time. That I guess we had finished up our qualification period. Sort of back end of August, early September sort of thing. So kind of had sort of a month, 6 weeks to sit and really think about what I could have done better, what I could have done a bit different to maybe sway the decision a bit more. Because Tom and I were sort of almost identical results over the year, and it was really just a decision on the panel. So you're sort of sitting there just wondering whether you've done all you can. But to finally get that phone call and to be told that you're the one that's selected was pure relief, really. Not all that much excitement at that time. That certainly didn't hit till later. But it was pure relief, really. That in some sense you've done the hardest part of the job for us. That sort of beating the current world champion, someone that's obviously trying to go and defend their gold medal as well. They've shown that they can be successful, and you're trying to prove that you can do the same thing. It was extremely hard, and you just never knew. So I guess relief was that biggest one. But then when it was sort of a couple of weeks later and we could go and do the official ceremony, you can call it, to say that you've been selected, that's when things really started to sink in, and you start to get that excitement and the goosebumps. And I guess I went and had a bit of time off almost straight away after that, just to chill out, and then go and hit that last sort of 8 to 9 months really, really hard, and really focus. Well, at that time, 9 months to focus on the games. So it was a really cool experience. But obviously other things happened, and
yes, and there was a bit more time off that was probably expected. Which, just with Tom, I mean, in such a tense rivalry with him in the lead up to Rio, then after Rio, then into Tokyo, like, can you be friends? Like, I'm sure you're friends, unless you hate each other. Break the news here on the show today. But like, how is it when you're with someone like that who you're working against but closely with? You're fighting for the same spot, because you're all athletes. You're all extremely competitive and driven. I can imagine that must be a very interesting relationship.
Yeah, it's a strange one as well, because like Tom was already at the top of the laser, I guess, when I really started to come into the team. So he was someone that I, in some sense, looked up to, strived to be like when I first got into the team. So, at the beginning of the campaign and stuff, that we were staying together at events. We're reasonably close, spending quite a lot of time together. And then all of a sudden selection period starts, and you're sort of knocking each other off and beating each other for world championship medals and World Cup medals. That there's going to be that natural butting of heads. And I think that's where we really start to lean on someone like Black as our coach, who did a really good job of making sure that we stayed together and worked as a team. I like to sort of think of it as very much a professional relationship. We hung out and we were there together because we needed to be there for each other, for the best for our country and best for our squad. So that was a big part of it. But I guess once the selection happened in general for Tokyo, there was obviously some natural disappointment from his side, and almost like a bit of like a bad relationship, or a bit bad breakup in some sense, that you have that time apart and you don't really talk to each other, and things are a little bit sour for a little bit. But like, we're good mates now. We're both doing a campaign on another boat together, and there's that side of things that obviously respects the fact that when I won a gold medal and things like that. And I totally understand from my side of things that there was that disappointment to not get selected for the games. We both, I think, we're mature enough to see the lighter side of all of it. And we're certainly good mates now.
So it's 1-1 then. You've both got a gold. You've both been cut just before an Olympics. So does that mean then this is the big finale is Paris? Basically, we need to really keep an eye on this rivalry in the next couple of years to see who comes out on top then for the ultimate win.
Yeah. I think the team would like that to happen. But Tom's moved on in life at this point in time. Still competing, but he's moved to a different class with the 49er. But yeah, he's got a wife and a kid now, and I think he's set his sights on some different things in sailing and life in general. So yeah, unfortunately, there won't be that third round of the battle. But yeah, I mean, still part of the team and stuff. It's still good to have around.
At the same, we've seen just the duel in the pool recently between USA and Australia. I don't know. We could have just we've tried to amp up sailing in the past with some Pirates of the Caribbean music, so we could have just made that full on. It could be swords and everything going on out there to really, But it's a shame. We'll get Tom back on. We'll talk him back into going to. I don't know. We'll work something out there so
Yeah.
it can go there. I always love finding out though from Olympians that moment where you perhaps feel that you are an Olympian, be it the moment you're selected, you're talking about, if you go to the opening ceremony, village life, the moment you compete, the moment the medal's around your neck. I mean, there's so many options to choose from, but was there a moment that all of a sudden it hit you that I'm an Olympian?
Yeah, I guess it probably wasn't until after the games, really. It was such an odd experience with COVID and everything like that. That I can imagine in a normal setting without any sort of the restrictions or anything like that, that you'd do the thing where you'd walk in off the plane with everyone else, and you'd really have that moment of like, wow, like I'm at the atmosphere of the Olympic Games. But for us, it seems so normal in the sense of we flew in by ourselves. We got ferried off to our little location away from everyone else. We went sailing each day. Okay, there was some really cool banners and there was a lot of other random people around and a lot of cameras and things like that. But it was so focused on the games itself and the result itself that you kind of like had the blinkers up in some sense, and couldn't really enjoy that atmosphere of the Olympic Games. And yeah, certainly COVID probably had a big effect on that. But it wasn't until after the games where I guess started to do all the post Olympic stuff and obviously having this success and everything like that that could really start to let it all sink in and be like, wow, I am an Olympian and a gold medalist at that. So yeah, it was a strange experience, but probably wasn't until after the games itself that it started to sink in.
So I also imagine though going into that in an event which Australia had won at the previous two Olympics. Obviously, Channel 7 did a bit of a piece on you. There would have been a bit of coverage on you, which I don't know if that is something that outside of sailing circles you're too used to, because sailing really is a sport, unfortunately, in Australia that sadly some people only really give a shit about every 4 years during an Olympics. So, I mean, does extra attention like that help you, spur you on? Did you find it hard to deal with? I mean, kind of what was all that sort of stuff like in the lead up to the Olympics?
Yeah. It was certainly tough. I think because obviously the media and everything got around the whole COVID thing and not being able to travel, and they almost had another 12 months to really sort of work on stories as well, and sort of tried to find things to put in the media. Whereas in the past, it's been so busy with lead up events for things like the swimming and yeah, all other sports that um, they were sort of busy and didn't really want to worry about the sailing. Whereas it certainly felt like this time around, and that they could focus on the sailing. And I think the fact that our sailing team was selected so early as well, that there was something that they could lean on too, because it wasn't something that was going to change. It wasn't something that was going to be different for them. So we certainly got hammered a little bit more than we maybe were expecting in that 12 months leading up to the games. And yeah, had to do a pretty big job of almost having Black as my coach as a manager in some sense to really filter through what he felt would be good for a career opportunity and what would just be a waste of time and what would potentially be something that would unravel the whole campaign. So yeah, sort of lent on that a lot. And then I guess once we got to the Olympics itself, it was quite easy to block all that out. I mean, obviously, media is only allowed in certain places, and with COVID, it was even more strict. So that became quite easy. We just put a full blanket on everything. Obviously, knew that the pressure was there from the whole three-peat point of view and the previous success, and even just the side of the selection with Tom, that there was that side of, well, have they chosen the right person to go to the Olympics? So yeah, it was certainly something that was sitting there in the back. But I think at that point in my career and almost everyone's career that goes to the Olympics, you're used to dealing with that sort of stuff. And yeah, at the end of the day, you just go there and do what you can as a competitor.
Which I can still imagine, though, that you're going there obviously striving to win a medal, do the best you can, win it. But there must be something about that notion of a three-peat that just adds a little extra to it, right? I can imagine that this is Australia's event. This is ours. We own the water for this. I mean, was there that element too that really kind of helped you mentally go like, this is ours?
Yeah, well, I guess it just added pressure, really. It's just like, oh, don't want to be that person that sort of ruins this for the country, sort of thing. Yeah, you sort of get, yeah, Australia's the dominant country in the laser, and yeah, you don't want to be that guy that ruins that success for the class and the country. So, yeah, there was that pressure, but yeah, I mean, at the same time, it was just really exciting to be a part of that history and to potentially be the person that does the third win and to continue that streak for the country was just exciting, more so. But I guess it was more the personal pressure really that was there, but as well. The Blackers who had coached both the two Toms and myself to the medals, I kind of knew that he was going to move on from the coaching side of things and he wasn't going to be our coach anymore. So there was that pressure too that I wanted to do it for him, for everything that he's done for the class and for all of us. So yeah, there was a few different sort of angles to look at it. But I guess at the end of the day, there's no real critic like yourself and there's no real pressure like you're going to put on yourself to go and compete. So yeah, at the end of the day, let's just go out there and do what you can do.
Always love finding out. I mean, you sort of touched on a little bit before about when you got to the Olympics about how, it didn't really feel overly different with the uniqueness of Tokyo. But was there any element of that Olympic lifestyle that you were able to sort of take on board? Be it pin trading? Did you, bump shoulders with Simone Biles or somebody like that, where you can kind of just all of a sudden take it in a little bit somewhere there?
Yeah, unfortunately not, because yeah, our team had chosen to stay outside of the sailing village itself. So we had our own accommodation in a hotel. So we were literally just going from our room in the hotel to the sailing venue and back. Absolutely no interaction with anyone other than our own coach, the physio, and then you might have a socially distant meal with someone else from the sailing team that's yeah that happens to be in the same accommodation. So yeah, from that sense it was a bit disappointing. They didn't sort of get to do that mingling and get to cross paths with some yeah people that you really sort of look up to in sport, and yeah sort of yeah idolize in some sense. So that was a bit of a shame, but yeah, I mean it was still amazing to be around the whole atmosphere of it for sure.
Which it seems, I mean, Paris, you're going to be there. We're just saying it right now, but because the sailing's not even in Paris, of course, is it? Like, is it Marseille or Bordeaux? It's like it's the opposite end of the country, is it not? So, like, you're not even going to be in that vicinity, unfortunately, it seems. So, LA 2028, mate, you're just going to have to keep going. Brisbane 20, like, I mean, you're just going to have to keep going so you can finally experience this.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, again, yeah, Paris. If we do get to go, it's disappointing that yeah, it's an hour and a half flight away almost. So yeah, there won't be any of that enjoyment of the opening ceremony and things like that. But yeah, hopefully it's in a normal world and we can potentially go to the closing ceremony or something and do those sorts of fun things once we finish competing. But yeah, I think you're right. Just need to keep going until I eventually get that opportunity.
Perfect excuse. I mean, it could be worse. It could be a surfer. They're in bloody Tahiti. They're not even in the same continent. Yeah. So I mean, there's that to look at. The experience itself. So the first couple of races, obviously, not off to a great start, but from that point on, let's be honest, Matt, you shattered in. You win the gold with a race to go. What was it after race 2 that kind of turned it around? Did you just sort of see what had gone wrong or something and just was able to turn it around? Or, I mean, was there a moment that kind of helped you, dominate the last bunch of races?
Yeah, I guess not much changed really. I guess those first 2 races were they were quite weird circumstances. I guess the first race we were put on the media course, which means that they basically just do the race regardless of the conditions. That they're under such a time pressure, and obviously a sport that relies on the environment and actually having some proper wind. It's not really plausible sometimes. So yeah, that was a marginal race, and the next one was a breakage that was out of my hands. Yeah, something that I couldn't control, which was something else that completely different that I had to deal with. But I guess we knew deep down that I was sailing well, and the lead up to the Olympics, I was winning almost every race that we were doing from a training point of view. So we knew that I guess the form was there, and that had the ability to go and basically dominate the week. So yeah, we just had to keep doing what we're doing and hoping that nothing else strange happened, really. And once I sort of got into that groove and things started to fall into place, it was just, yeah, it was almost on autopilot, really. It was just sort of going through the motions and doing what I knew I could do.
Which I can imagine it's very momentum based. So when you do get into that groove and you keep going through there, it just goes through the motions with it too. Which do you allow yourself in any of those moments to go, yeah, this is mine. This is it. You know, obviously, as I said, you get it with a race to spare, so you can obviously focus that last race, bit of a victory lap. But are there any of those other moments when you got that groove and, as you said, going through the motions that you dared to dream a little bit that gold, you could taste it? It wasn't silver that you got the world champs anymore. It was going to be gold.
Yeah, not really, to be honest. I think because of obviously the way our regatta works, in the sense that you can drop your worst race, you can discard that. But the fact that I had two bad races, it was like if I had another one, it was like game over. Like we'll be lucky to make the top 10 sort of thing. So I guess that was a really big side of it, in the sense of like we cannot stop until this gold medal is in our pocket, sort of thing. Like cannot afford to have another bad race. So there was always that, I guess, a bit of a motivator, but it was always that drive that like, well, like we got to keep pushing on here. We've got to keep looking forward. Just got to have the best race we can today. And yeah, it wasn't really until after that last race on that Friday that I guess things were sealed in some sense, that we could really start to enjoy it.
Are you like, knowing that you go into your one more race, obviously to get it, but it's yours? Do you just? I could imagine you're just so nervy at that point. Like, oh my God, don't get COVID tomorrow, or don't like trip and hit your head when I go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Like, oh, drive an extra 5 kilometers slower on the way to the circuit. Like, because I mean, I'm sure your mind is going over all the things that could prevent you, even though you've got it. I mean, how nervy is it to go there knowing you've got the goal, but you've still got one race to go?
Yeah, definitely. And we had a day off between so we had the Saturday as a lay day between
extra day.
Yeah. So although like obviously an amazing position to be in, from the sense of like basically secured a gold medal, that there was no stress from a performance point of view. Like you say, the stress around all the other stuff was just like, geez, you don't want to be that person that's in the media for having won a gold medal before the medal race, and then you end up losing it because you didn't turn up to some media commitment, or you didn't turn up to get your boat checked at the right time. Like,
did
that
I
was
take
just
those
like,
drugs the other day, or did I?
Yeah. Thankfully not to that point, but yeah. But I mean, like normally we'd get to the boat park half an hour before we need to, if that, before we need to have our boats checked in and things like that. But like we were there like 2 hours before, because it was just like, don't let something stupid like a bit of traffic or that we didn't like account for, or getting caught up in security or something like that being the thing that unravels the gold medal. So yeah, that side of stress was it was almost unbearable. But at the same time, you knew that as long as you just turned up for your time slot and things like that, that everything was going to be okay.
On the flip side of that, though, that moment when that's over with, you're officially a gold medalist. Is that something you can put into words, Matt, that you're an Olympic gold medalist?
Yeah, it sort of still sinks into today. Sort of get to hear it again, and I guess things like watching the Winter Olympics and things like that. Sort of earlier this year, that it really starts to sink in. But sort of standing on top of the dice and having the national anthem play, and you sort of, I guess I sort of ran through those images of seeing people like Elise and Tessa standing, listening to the national anthem, the two Toms doing it. The things that you've aspired to for so long, and the images that you've had playing in your mind for so many years, that sort of looking from like almost a third person point of view, and you're sort of looking at yourself standing on top of that podium, and you start to realize that it's actually real. So yeah, that was a phenomenal experience, and yeah, we had quite a close team there as well, and sort of seeing down, and I was one of the first people. Well, I was the first people from our team to win a medal for sailing. So to seeing the rest of the team down there and seeing the pure joy in their faces, and the excitement from them was really a special experience for sure.
Which also, too, the special experience, like, I mean, added to it. 1st of August 2021 will go down in history as Australia's greatest day ever at the Olympics. You were one of 4 gold medals that Australia won that day, which, I mean, were you aware of what had been happening? We gotten 2 in the swimming, obviously Logan got it in the cycling. So, I mean, had you been made aware of that, or was that something that, say, Channel 7 pointed out to you later, or somebody pointed out to you later, that you're part of this history-making day?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I guess majority of the medals happened in that sort of lead up to the race, and while I was out in the water as well. So yeah, had no idea. I obviously just assumed that I was going to come in and the media were going to be around the fact that I'd won a gold medal and things like that. But it wasn't until I was standing in front of the Channel 7 that they sort of touched on the fact that we'd won 3 previous gold medals that day, and I was the 4th. And yeah, it was like, wow. Sort of stand there for sort of 10 seconds and just sort of letting that sink in. And yeah, like you say, I'll always be part of that history. And yeah, he's hoping that we can go and win 5 gold medals on one day in Paris. But
and you'll be part of that day too, Matt. I'm telling you, you're the lucky charm for that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely cool to be a part of that, and to be the 4th person as well to do it. Yeah, it sort of seemed a little bit more special too.
Because it's crazy to think that, obviously, as you're saying, you're sort of not really integrated with a bunch of these other people, but was there a bit of a vibe amongst sort of the Australian crew of the success that was happening in the whole team? I've spoken to a few of the Winters about this, about how that success earlier in Beijing this year, but I mean, can you feel that? Is there some sort of weird thing in the Tokyo air that drifts across to the sailing venue of everything that's happening else in the vicinity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, of course, still watch the Olympics while we're there. So yeah, you're seeing other sports reach success. Obviously, swimming being a big part of that, and yeah, you do. So it does fuel you, does give you a bit of motivation. But yeah, I think within the sailing team itself, that it's quite because we're so staggered through the week. Like there's like almost 5 days before the last class finishes to the first class finishes. So there's quite a weird sort of emotional state throughout the week, from nerves to excitement to pure joy, and then obviously disappointment as well. That we had a class with our NACRA squad that narrowly missed out on a medal, and having won silver in Rio. So there was that disappointment. You sort of ride through those emotions as a team, and you try not to get caught up in them while you're competing. But certainly for myself, having finished before everyone else, that could really sort of get invested in that. And it was a strange experience, that obviously the success of other people and yourself, but then also the disappointment of the Olympics that you don't necessarily get to see as a normal person. That that was hard to deal with, and seeing that from a teammate point of view as well was tough.
And which, obviously, with the uniqueness of it too, sort of once you win the gold, are you ferried out there? I mean, did you stay a couple of days after to soak in with Matt and Will and closing ceremony things, or are you're out of there straight away?
Yeah, well, normally the rule was get shipped out within the 48 hours sort of thing. But we got special exemption, and I'd asked to stay around for Matt and Will to finish as well. And because we were lucky enough to be staying sort of separate to everyone else, that we could do that, as long as we stayed within our COVID requirements. So that was really cool. I think I actually ended up becoming part of like the tech team in those 5 days, so I could stay there. But yeah, it was amazing just to hang around and to be a part of the team and just really help other people as well. To sort of support them from an on-land point of view, sort of take the weight off them where we can, sort of thing, was just really nice as well. And I guess like Matt and Will, like we were staying in the same place, and I guess that routine side of thing as well, that like we were having breakfast together every morning. So there was that side of it too, that you felt like you had that not an obligation, but you felt like you wanted to continue that routine for them while they were competing. So yeah, that was really special in a whole, that you could just sort of be there for them, and yeah, having no pressure from my side, you could just do what I needed to do for them.
One thing I love about the Olympics is Australia can always rely on the sailors. I remember, I think it was London when the media was, having a field day with how bad Australia was doing, then a couple of goals to the sailors. But I mean, obviously with Tokyo as well, I mean, take away those measly 9 swimming gold medals that we won. Sailing is the equal, most successful sport in terms of gold medals alongside canoeing and rowing. So you can always rely on the Aussie sailors to help boost that gold medal tally, right? I mean, we just know, you guys know what to do to help out Australia at an Olympics at a time of need.
Yeah, I think London certainly set us on that trend. Obviously, there's so many other things that happen in the background that make the results happen, but yeah, it certainly seems that way. And I think the way that we fall in the schedule of the Olympics as well is we're always in a little bit of like a lull in the competition, sort of between the swimming and the athletics and the other that second week. So I think once it sort of dies off after the swimming a little bit, that we come in and secure a couple of medals, and it sort of kickstarts the whole nation again to to go into that second week of the Olympics. So it certainly feels like we fall into a good place. But hopefully we can continue that streak and let sailing be the backbone of Australian Olympians.
I've got to ask that, I mean, we're just, time of recording this, we're a couple of weeks removed from the Commonwealth Games. What do we have to do to get sailing at the Commonwealth Games? I mean, like, sailing's kind of one of those sports where I feel you don't really get to do many multi-sport events outside of an Olympics. So, I mean, Victoria 2026, let's make it happen. Let's pitch the organising committee to put sailing at the Commonwealth Games, because Australia would win every single bloody gold medal like we do at the swimming at the Commonwealth Games. That's easy. Come on.
Yeah, well, we don't really understand that either. I guess from an infrastructure point of view as well, we're quite easy. So
got some water, put a boat on it. Simple.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's nobody. You stand on the shores and watch. You can't hear the crowd anyway. So what does it matter? So
exactly right. Yeah, we don't understand that one. Obviously, a few more medals would be nice for the nation, whether at Com Games or anything. But yeah, not sure. I think we need to find the right people and have a quiet chat to them and try and get it in. Yeah, for 2026 for sure.
We'll try to use our limited influence, Matt, to try and get that happening. Before we get to some closing questions, a couple of things I love to touch on with any of our medalists. First of all, the medal. Matt, what do you do with it? Like, is it on display in a sock drawer? Kind of like, where is the medal?
Yeah, it's well, I like to hope it's still on display. It's currently back in Perth at my parents' place.
Right.
But yeah, certainly straight after the games when I came back to Belgium, it sat pride and place on the bookshelf in the living room. So same thing back home. It certainly it obviously gets watched over with a keen eye to make sure it doesn't go missing or anything. But it's certainly it's there for show. Don't want to hide it. It's obviously a nice thing to look at each day. So it certainly sits there pride of place.
I was going to say a bit of separation anxiety. I mean, you're talking to us in Belgium right now. I mean, like on the other side of the world. Like, I mean, God, I would never want to take the bloody thing off. But do you call your mum and dad? Like, can I speak to it? Can I see it? Like, please, I need to see my medal.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I guess as well, like obviously after the games, they carried it around everywhere from doing all the different events and seeing people and showing it off almost sort of thing. And it's all of a sudden I went back over east and didn't take it with me, obviously from a security point of view. But it was like, it sort of feels a bit strange that it's not with me sort of thing. And there are those days where you're like, I wouldn't mind just having a little look at it and a touch and feel to make sure it's still there, make sure it's real.
Which, is that fun to take through airport security? I mean, do you put it in your suitcase or are you kind of just like wrap it around the neck so you deliberately go, oh, how embarrassing, I left my Olympic gold medal on. Oh, I better put it in the security tray.
Yeah, there were some interesting times. I did a fair bit of travel just around Europe itself, and obviously heading back home after the games too. After that period, that you go through I had it in my hand luggage, and it would just be this big blob on the machine. And you'd always get this random question of like, what is it? So you have to take it out and show them, and then like once they opened up the like the case. They're like, oh wow, it's Olympic gold medal. So there was that, yeah, a few different sides of it. And then I think one day it actually went out of sight for a little while. Some guy
Oh,
just got so excited and took it. Had to go
wow.
show his manager or whatever. So it was a bit like, oh, I hope he's going to bring it back. But yeah, it was quite cool to go through security and be like, yeah, it's just a gold medal. Well, not just a gold medal, but it's a gold
Yeah,
medal. And then
yeah.
yeah,
The
pure
Olympic one.
enjoyment you got to see on people's faces when they got to see one.
I always love to find out though too if you try and get free stuff with it. Like when you're checking in, do you go, "Oops, my gold medal fell out. Maybe I should go in business class." Like, I mean, is it something that you've tried to milk a little bit to get something free from it?
Yeah, again, I think COVID kind of hamstrung me a little bit with all that. Yeah,
So there's still time though. You're
unfortunately,
saying basically you've got some ideas.
yeah. Certainly, there was that side of and just wearing the Olympic clothing as well. Every
Yep.
time I checked in, make sure I had the jacket on or a shirt on or something. I had the Olympic rings on. Um, but yeah, it certainly has helped in some sense. Certainly got a few free things and a little bit of help here and there from being a gold medalist. But yeah, unfortunately, didn't get to pull it out of the check in and get a free upgrade to business class or anything like that.
Yet, Matt,
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
word.
yeah.
Yet. Which you also get to be on a stamp. I love getting stamp stories. Did mum and dad rush out to Australia Post and buy a couple of reels of it? Do you still get a letter when you go back home and go, oh shit, my face is on a letter? Like, I mean, that's the experience like being on a stamp.
Yeah, that was one of the weird ones. I think one of my good mates just immediately sent me a message saying, "I bought one of your stamps so I can finally lick the back of your head." And I was just like, "That's a little bit strange, but yeah, good to know." So there are some funny and weird stories about it. But yeah, it's cool that yeah, obviously you don't receive that much mail these days, but yeah, the odd time that someone has to send a letter or something that they all of a sudden send a message saying like, well, here's a picture of your stamp on my letter. So
Yep.
yeah, that is pretty cool.
I really hope we can get, like, I'm not hoping that people out there, don't have the joys of being in a loving relationship, but if we get a single gold medalist on this show who can somehow work in what you just kind of alluded to on a Tinder profile. Like, hey, if you want to lick the back of my head, like swipe right. Like, it sounds a bit creepy, but then you can be like, no, I'm an Olympic gold medalist, have a stamp. Like, I think there could be some fun with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you could play with the words for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how far you could go with that. That's up to interpretation. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
that unique aspect of being an Australian Olympic gold medalist. You get a stamp with you. Moving forward, though, before we get to these closing questions, Matt, obviously Paris, the goal. You hoping to be the first Australian to defend the laser gold medalist? I mean, is that kind of where the focus is right now? A little less than 2 years out from Paris.
Yeah, it's exactly it. No one in the laser at all has gone back to back at the Olympics before with the gold medal. So that's a pretty big motivation for myself. Yeah, obviously still in the prime of my career too. So there's sort of no real reason why we can't see that happening. But yeah, that's purely it to go and try and win a back to back gold medal for Australia in the laser class, and yeah, see how things go from there.
Because obviously it's a quicker turnaround usually than you would have in an Olympics. Obviously, it's a 3 year turnaround rather than a 4 year turnaround. So I mean, does that make it more challenging, or is it better for the momentum side of things because you can kind of keep in that aspect of, hey, I just won a gold, let's keep going, let's win another gold.
Yeah, you definitely. I think it's fallen at a perfect time for myself. That yeah, like I said, sort of at that peak of my career almost. So it's timing wise, it's amazing. Just to only have 3 years between. But yeah, at the same time, it feels like we're running out of time as well. I mean, for Tokyo, we were at the venue for since 2016 even. So to only have a couple of years at the venue now, and I've only just done my first trip to Marseille. So that feels a bit strange. And to think that we're going into selections next year for the
Wow.
Olympics
Quick.
is yeah is crazy to think about. So yeah, it's sort of it's good and bad at the same time. I mean, yeah, it feels like it's gone really quick, and only having the 3 years, didn't think it would feel like that much of a difference. But losing 12 months from a lead-in point of view, yeah, it seems crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's good and bad.
Which, I don't know, I mentioned Brisbane before. Obviously, you focus on Paris, you're not thinking 10 years ahead. But I mean, how tempting is that? And how is it possible for, is it possible for a sailor to go into that age? Because you've got a home Olympics in 10 years. I mean, that's going to be tempting to any Australian, no matter what point they are in their career right now. Is it a possibility for a sailor to add another, go into their mid-30s to compete? Is that the norm?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, there's a guy in our class, in laser class, called Robert Scheidt, who, has won, I think it's 5 medals now in the Olympics. And he was 50 years old in Tokyo.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and competitive, like in the medal
You'll be in
hunt.
the next Australian Olympics after Brisbane. You'll be in Adelaide
Yeah.
2046, whatever it will be then, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, there's certainly the possibility. Longevity is just the biggest thing, making sure the body holds together, really, a bit like any athlete. So that's probably the biggest side of it. But yeah, there's absolutely no reason why I sort of can't see myself going there. Going
Because it
to
must be so alluring.
2032.
Like, I mean, you've obviously got these other life
Yeah,
goals you want to do, but I mean, how often does an athlete get to go to a home Olympics? So it must be so tempting.
yeah. That all got announced last year, it was just like, yeah, wow. Obviously, so far away, but at the same time, like you hear stories of people from 2000. I mean, one of my early coaches, Belinda Stoll, who won gold in 2000. Like hearing some of the stories from her around being at a home Olympics and winning a gold medal, like yeah, it's just a whole nother level. And to be able to do that would just be amazing. So, and even just to compete at a home Olympics would be incredible. So, yeah, it's certainly sitting there in the back of my mind. And there's that side, yeah, sort of got other things you want to do in your life, and yeah, maybe an Olympic campaign doesn't really go with that. But yeah, I mean, more than willing to put other things aside just to have a home Olympic Games would be incredible. But yeah, we'll see how we go in Paris, and maybe think about LA and go from there.
I'm picturing this now. You go on to win gold in Paris. Tom comes back to laser, and unfortunately, you lose out in LA. But then there's this big reunion. You and Tom get together for the 470 in Brisbane. Boom! It's the greatest story. You both win your third Olympic gold medals, and you've teamed up in a boat. And the greatest story in Australian Olympic sailing. There you go. You can have that idea for free.
Yeah, perfect. Might have to sell that idea, I reckon.
Yeah.
Make it feasible.
Come on, it sells itself. You
Yeah.
guys could almost be in line to light the cauldron. We're selling out Kieran Perkins to fall over at the last minute so Stephen Bradbury can sweep in and light the cauldron because their Queensland is great. But come on, I don't think a sailor's ever lit the Olympic cauldron. So we're just gonna get some fuel out there, literally, for the fire.
Sounds pretty good to me. I'll run with it.
Yeah, you take it all on. You get all this advice. You
Yeah.
keep it there going, Matt. Now, we close out all our interviews with a set of fun, silly, get-to-know-yourself questions. As always, these are based on a questionnaire that Team Canada gave their athletes ahead of Rio and Pyeongchang. And as always as well, Matt, there is a drawing. If you want to, this isn't compulsory, but if you're bored today and you want to do some drawing, send it in to us after the interview. We'll put it on our social media. There's an option here to draw a picture of yourself. Draw a picture. Well, this is of a Canadian animal, but please do an Australian animal, unless you would love to draw a beaver or something. And what would the coolest Olympic medal look like? You've got one. You're missing it, so maybe you could draw, I don't know, a boat or Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. I have no idea. So if you want to, Matt, no pressure. So
Yeah.
just feel free to send it in. We'll put it on our social media. But I'll start off with the first question, and you can answer your own gold medal winning moment if you like. Your favorite all-time Olympic moment is?
Cool. Yeah, I always go back to Usain Bolt winning his third gold medals. That was pretty cool to watch. Yeah, sort of 3x3 is pretty impressive. Yeah, so that was probably one of my ultimate Olympic moments. Apart from looking back at my own, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. Which actually, the answers we get in that one, weirdly, Usain Bolt doesn't get mentioned much as I think he should. So yeah,
right.
Thanks. Bring him to the table. That's a great answer. I think it should be answered more. The best candy in the world is?
Oof. Yeah, that is a tough one. I can't go past this like a good pack of like the Haribo colas.
Oh yes, good
Yeah.
answer. Are they abundant in Belgium? Is that a thing? Like, are they sort of more common there than?
Yeah, go to in Europe in general, really.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Any shop will have them.
And is that a staple diet of a sailor, or are you generally avoiding candy?
Well, it depends who's listening to the podcast. No,
Okay, not many
yeah,
people, so you can say whatever you want. It's all good.
no, it is pretty staple. Lollies are well and truly on the daily diet. Yeah, yeah, it's a little nice little pick me up snack
The
to get through
secrets
the
of
last half of the
sailors.
day.
I like that.
Yeah.
The secrets are going there. What is your favorite sandwich?
Ooh, I mean, I'm pretty impartial to just a peanut butter sandwich. That's usually my go-to out in the water.
So you're
Yeah,
eating
it's
on
one
the
of those.
water, like you're actually out.
Yeah,
Is this isn't on the
yeah.
laser, right? This is on a bigger boat, right? Is it, or is it on the
No,
laser?
no, just on the laser. Yeah, yeah. Get a coach
Whip out
hand
a
me
sandwich. All right.
yeah, my PB sandwich.
Wow.
But yeah, again, can't go past like a good chicken sanger, like bit of salad, bit of mayo, sort of
Good
one of those
answer.
deli style chicken sandwiches. Yeah,
Are you a crunchy or a smooth peanut butter man?
I'm a crunchy.
You're a
Yeah.
crunchy man. Okay. I was going to guess you're a crunchy man. You look like a crunchy man. So there you go. In your spare time, what do you most like to do?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, the cliched stuff. Spend time with my partner Emma. But yeah, a sport's a pretty big part of my life. I like to follow all sports, cycling especially,
Yep.
and being based in Europe now. It's perfect for watching things like the Tour de France and yeah, going and seeing some live sport is a big thing, as well as football as well. Try to follow it while I'm still over here. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, going into a nice coffee shop too is a pretty big one. Yeah, no matter where we are in the world, we're always trying to seek out a good coffee shop. So
You got a few over in Europe, I can imagine. That's not hard to find where you are, probably.
yeah, there's more and more now. Usually quite hard to find earlier, but yeah, they're quite easy to find these days. But yeah, that's mainly it, really. Yeah, just spending time with friends and family, really.
Do you, so just on the footy front, the AFL front, so like I lived overseas before and I know how hard it is with the time differences and that to try and follow it. Like, oh, do I get up? Are we doing well enough that I'm going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch this? But is that something you sign up to the AFL live and you set the alarm, or like for a season? I'm not trying to rip fun into Port Adelaide. I don't dislike Port Adelaide. Like, was it like this year? Fuck it, we're not doing well enough. I don't need to get up and watch it.
Yeah, I can't say I'm hardcore enough to get up and in the middle of the night and watch. But yeah, I certainly follow the live scores and stuff online. Yeah, sort of just touch base. Obviously, yeah, still spending a fair bit of time training. So yeah, there's that side of it too. But yeah, I definitely do follow it yearly, and I'll always get the updates from back home I don't happen to be watching at the time. I always get the cheeky little message from a mate being like, "Yeah, suck it,"
Yeah.
and you always find out if you've lost or won or
You see that
how it may
message
be on
first
the
on
day.
your phone, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Which I mean,
yeah.
do you give a shit about the finals? I mean, like, it's kind of like as neutral supporter, do you go in with a team that you want to win or care about?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a bit like Western Bulldogs winning the other year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always, especially the grand final, regardless of who the team is, always someone that sort of prefer to see win over the others. So yeah, definitely tune in for the finals. That's probably the bigger part that I'm more likely to tune into. But I think I'm home just for the grand final this year. So looking forward to
Nice.
watching that.
Hopefully
Watching that live.
Freo might make it then, so Perth would be a sea of purple, basically.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that would be cool to watch. Obviously, seeing them go to the grand final once before, but it would be good to see them be successful at the grand final. So, yeah, although not a major supporter, that's one of the cool teams that would be good to see.
They've always been my second team because I usually base it on least successful teams, or like who I'd like to, and that's generally what I do in the finals. Who hasn't won it the longest, and unless it's Collingwood or Hawthorn, they can get fucked. But like it's generally one of those teams. So I mean, 2004, I was on the Port train because Brisbane had won it 3 years in a row. I was like, stop winning Brisbane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've always had a real soft spot for Fremantle. So no, I'm very much on their bandwagon for these finals. So hopefully, like, I just don't like West Coast either. So I'm kind of
No.
no, you judge a team on their supporters, and I'm sorry, West Coast supporters, you bring it on yourself, let's be honest.
Totally agree.
Your favourite sports movie is?
Oh, Happy Gilmore, without a doubt.
Ah, yes. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Love it. Do you get the Happy Gilmore action when you go out on the golf course at all? Like, you got to give it a try at least once in your life, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a driving range staple. Yeah, the last few balls are usually Happy Gilmore balls, make you feel good.
Do you remember
Yeah,
that
but
period where you'd go to a driving range and they literally would have to have a sign that says "No Happy
yeah,
Gilmore Shot"? Do you remember those? They were fun.
yeah, yeah, certainly do. I think they still have them sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a movie
you
that
always get that.
transcends so much because they literally have to ban people from ripping into it,
Yeah,
basically.
no,
So,
exactly right. Yeah.
great movie, great choice. Already know the answer to this. As a kid, your favorite sports team was obviously Port Adelaide. You mentioned cycling, but do you get caught up in like soccer while you're over there? I mean, obviously Belgium's got a pretty handy team ahead of the World Cup this year, but I mean, don't know if you get caught up in the European domestic leagues because obviously it's a bit of a bigger deal over there than it is in Australia.
Yeah, never really got into the whole soccer thing. Yeah, just I guess obviously being Australian, it's not really something we supported growing up and things like that. So yeah, just never really got. I've gone to a few games. Yeah, over the years, and have enjoyed that. So I can see myself. Yeah, can't say I follow the Euro League or anything like that that closely. Just obviously see what happens on the news and things like that.
I can imagine though Belgium would explode if they won the World Cup. I mean, they'd have to be, I think, the
Oh
smallest
yeah,
country to win the World Cup if they did this year. But
yeah.
yeah, no, that would be. I always don't mind the Belgium team in a World Cup. So anyway, your favorite workout? We touched on the workouts before, but what is the one that you love doing when you go to the gym?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of just like, yeah, almost like supersets, really. Like, yeah, just your heavy lifts, your squats, things like that. I think it's one of those things that the grass is always greener on the other side. And being a bigger guy, I've never really been able to do the big weight gain, muscle build stuff. So I think when I finally get the opportunity and I'm allowed to do it the once a week, then I really that's my favorite, just to go and sort of smash out some big weights.
Good answer. I like it. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'd almost say Perth. Yeah, yeah, I do miss home. Yeah, it's one place I obviously enjoy being, and yeah, I think it's got the best of everything in Perth. So that would be my answer.
Nice to give the home city a plug. I like that. So, and got to say, as a fan of like all things Olympics, and I'm a big fan of a certain Basil Zemplis and his commentary. Obviously, he's your mayor now, so I mean, it's kind of this weirdness. I don't know how much of like when you're watching, say, the swimming when you're in Tokyo, if you get the Channel 7 feed, and if you do, you're going like, oh, that's my hometown's mayor at the moment, just commentating the swimming as you do at the Olympics, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, me and my mate Basil. No, I've
Yeah.
actually never met Basil.
Aw, you're a Perth
Yeah,
Olympic gold medalist. I thought he'd be there greeting you as you got off the plane.
yeah, I missed the opportunity to welcome home.
Come on,
Once all the
Baz.
restrictions. Yeah.
Jeez, we have to get words with him if we ever get him on the show. If you could have lunch with, and maybe it could be Basil Zemplis. If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough question. From pure enjoyment and fun, I would say someone like Usain Bolt would be
Yeah,
really amazing. Yeah, I was a successful person as well as seems to have a good fun.
indeed.
Um, yeah, but I mean, so many people out there, isn't there, that you'd like to sit down with. Someone like Bill Gates would be interesting.
Oh yeah, maybe
Yeah, just
he'd
from
pay for it at least. I'm sure.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you'd hope so. Might be able to afford
just
it.
from a pure interest point of view, I think it'd just be an interesting lunch.
Good answers. I like that. If you could I mean, I might know the answer to this one based on your love of your home city, but if you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be?
Ooh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I think just Sydney from the historical side of 2000 and just the infrastructure and everything. I think it would be amazing if Sydney put on another amazing Olympics. So that'd be cool. But I also think Paris would be quite incredible
Yeah.
as well. So I think that's something that I look forward to as well, seeing how they
It's
put on a show.
it's so crazy to think that, I mean, it's going to be the third time hosting the Olympics, but they haven't hosted it in like 100 years. So it's kind of like none of us in our lifetime have seen Paris host an Olympics, which it just seems like such an obvious city to host an Olympics.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah. It's not you see it in history that the Olympics being in Paris being quite prominent. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's been such a long time that it'll be incredible.
going to be a great show, and it's a shame that you're going there. You're obviously probably not going to be able to go to the opening ceremony because you're going to be a little bit far away. But that's a shame because they're going down the river. This is the sailors should automatically be. You should be carrying the athletes. This should be in your wheelhouse. So it's kind of like a shame that they've put the sailing so far away.
Yeah, that in itself sounds like an incredible experience. So that is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I guess hopefully they'll do something just as special for the closing ceremony. We can join in that.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oof. Oh, I'd say time travel. Yeah, to be able to jump like that, just purely from the amount of travel that we do. Yeah, how much that sucks. Would just be cool to be able to jump from one place to the other.
That would be perfect. And just sitting around casually on a Monday, bugger it, I'm just gonna go to, I don't know, China. I'm just gonna go to Africa. Just why not? Bored. What can I get for dinner in South Africa at 6? Just try different cuisines. What is the weirdest instruction a coach ever gave you?
My coach Blackers didn't really talk all that much, so whenever he did talk, he kind of listened to. But strange. I've had relationship advice before. That was strange.
Oh, was he in the middle of you're out in the ocean, and all of a sudden, by the way, this is what you should get your girlfriend for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Other than that, nothing too strange, to be honest. But that's probably the weirdest one. Yeah.
I don't see how that would help you perform. Or maybe it did help you. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that got you the gold medal in Tokyo. All of a sudden you're out there in the water. Yeah, this worked. God, gold medal. There you go. Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this question because it is so obscure and out of the blue, which you can interpret this however you want to. When you were little, what was one thing you always thought?
It is obscure.
Yeah, I'll just give you an example. So the answer here, we're using Heather Bainsley, a Canadian beach volleyball player. Her answer to this was, being an adult couldn't come fast enough.
Yeah. I guess I always thought about finally finishing school. I was never really a fan of school, so even from a really young age, I always just wanted to be out of that. That was something I always thought about and daydreamed about when I was in class. Yeah, other than that,
that's a great.
I guess
answer. We all had
always dreamed of the gold medal.
Yeah, well, exactly. There you go. I think one of the best answers I ever got for that one was that I was always hungry as a kid, which works. Which
that's a good one.
So on the school thing though, I'm not sure if it's happened yet, and by all means give a plug to your school. But if they then invite you back, hey, former pupil is now an Olympic gold medalist, you're going, oh fuck, I thought I'd never leave this place. I'm not going back.
Yeah, we got our 10-year reunion this year that's just being organised. So yeah,
wow.
That's unfortunately I'm not home.
What a shame! But I thought that would almost be a cool thing, though. How you always had that thing going to a reunion, who's the most successful Olympic gold medalist? Yeah, I've done all right for myself.
Yeah, there is those two sides of it. So the awkwardness of having a school reunion, but at the same time, at least you've got something to be successful and have a conversation about.
True. Are you the most successful? You're not classmates with I don't know, Nick Nanui or something like that, are you?
One of the guys I went to school with, he plays for Fremantle.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that there's certainly a few. It was quite a big year. So percentage-wise and, stats-wise, we probably had more likely to have a few successful people. But
did you go to school with Daniel Ricciardo, Matt? Are you holding this back?
No, unfortunately not. I wish I had a link to Daniel Ricciardo. That'd be cool.
He would have met Basil, surely.
Surely.
Can't imagine that he hasn't escaped seeing Basil along the way. Matt, before we let you go, people who want to follow the journey through to Paris, LA, to Brisbane and beyond, social media, websites, where can people stay up to date with you?
Yeah, Matt Wearn Sailing on Facebook and on the web. But probably the biggest ones Instagram, Matt Wearn 1995. So is me. It's probably the most likely to keep in touch with what's going on. Well, the other ones seem to have gone in the back pocket. But
don't have MySpace anymore. That's gone.
Unfortunately not.
Jumped on TikTok. Are you on TikTok? I always like to
no, it's something I've said I will never do, I reckon.
I think there needs to be a sailing TikTok. There probably is. I'm sure there is. But like, I mean, you could set the trend here. Olympic gold medalist Matt Wearn on the TikTok. Like that would work.
You never know. Yeah, there are some cool things to watch from a sailing point of view, crashes, stuff like that. So maybe it will take off.
I stand by. We had this when we had Will on a couple of weeks back. That again, Pirates of the Caribbean music, add it to sailing, and the kids will get involved at the Olympics. That's what you need to do. So like, blast it at Paris. I want you to put a little portable speaker on the laser and just and just blast it out. You would attract everyone involved. You don't need TikTok for that.
No, exactly. No, that sounds like a good plan.
Again, you get so many ideas, Matt. I'll have to start charging for them. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Good luck, everything moving forward for Paris and beyond. But we really do appreciate your time and off the podium today.
Thank you. Much appreciated.